Sonic.
Welcome to Brian Keane Fitness Podcast, where we talk everything fitness, nutrition and mindset with your host Brian Keane.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Brian Keane Fitness Podcast. We talk everything fitness, nutrition and mindset to help you with your goals. Today I'm so excited to have my guest Pat Divilly. Pat is an Irish fitness and mindset expert, author and highly successful entrepreneur. After struggling with his first personal training business in Dublin, Pat moved home to Galway in 2012 where he started a small fitness class with 5 people on his local beach. Now, 5 years after his first class, over 18,000 people from all over the world have gone through his classes, seminars and online training. And those of you following my podcast, you've heard me mention Pat on several occasions. He's also released 3 best-selling books, and I'll link all of those in the description. And he's visited over 30 countries while growing his online business. Pat, thank you so much for coming on.
Cheers, Brian. I appreciate it. Always good to talk to you.
Pat, for anyone that doesn't know about you, and they've heard me speak about you, and some of them will know, some of them won't, is there anything else that you want to tell the listeners about yourself? Whether business, fitness, your background? Just kind of give us a bit more of an introduction into you.
Do you want a brief history, or what's the best way of...
Go for it, yeah.
I suppose fitness became my first passion as a 12, 13-year-old. Even back then, getting my first weight set at 13, I just fell in love with the gym and martial arts. That was kind of my thing that gave me confidence. I think I was bullied a little bit in my younger years, and the first thing that gave me true confidence was the gym, martial arts, and just fell in love with it. So throughout school, that's all I did was kind of read nutrition books, spend my life on bodybuilding.com. I think I knew more about nutrition at 16 than I probably know now. So, but I had a limiting story in my head that I wasn't academic, I wasn't smart, I wasn't clever, and that stopped me from going and studying sports science or physio or anything like that. So I went and studied geography and economics, had no interest in that. And I did that in Galway. I didn't want to leave home. I wanted to be around. I didn't know what I wanted to do. But the one thing that kind of kept me sane throughout college was I'd go out to America every summer and pursue cage fighting out there. So it was like, this is 2006 maybe, 18. Went out, I want to be a cage fighter. I literally emailed the gym out there, said I want to be a cage fighter from Ireland. Can I sleep on your gym floor? And they were like, yeah. So going out there was the one thing, like I say, kept me going through college. Had no interest in geography and economics. But when I went to California, I know you spend a lot of time out there. I just saw what was possible. Like I saw kettlebells were starting to come in there, functional training. It was all happening. So I actually had a friend out there who became my fitness mentor. And when I came home, he committed suicide. He had been going through a really rough time. And for me at 18, I couldn't understand it because I saw this guy with such potential. He's 10 years older than me. And I would say to him, you should try this, and you should try this, and you should try this. And he just didn't see anything in himself. He just saw darkness, and he would encourage me, but he couldn't see any future for himself. So I didn't realize how depressed he was at the time. But through his passing, I suppose the one thing that I took from it was, you don't know what's coming next. And it's kind of me doing a disservice to myself and to everyone around me if I'm going to be miserable going through life. So I started studying to be a trainer, ultimately went on to do a master's in nutrition, and then started working in commercial gyms. And I'm a little bit like you in that I'm outspoken. I'll say it like it is because I'm in this to help people. I'm not in this to be popular or to. I'm in it because I always loved it since I was a kid. So I would tell people, this doesn't work. This works. Look at your nutrition. I remember working in a commercial gym and telling people to look at their nutrition and being called into the boss's office, and they said, if they look at their nutrition, they're going to lose weight and we're not going to retain them. So maybe don't tell them about nutrition. I was kind of banging my head against the wall. Wow. Got fired from a couple of gyms that I worked in or let go, and I was kind of happy with that. I said I'm going to go out on my own, and naive, I suppose, at 22, 23, thought I'm going to be a successful trainer here in Dublin. Really struggled to get my business off the ground because I didn't know how to market myself. I didn't know how to run a business. I was new as a trainer even. And ultimately, as the story goes, I came home, tail between my legs, which was a big blow to the ego. We're all similar, I think, as trainers. We're young guys that got into this because we were maybe insecure or it gave us confidence. And a lot of us carry that, I think, into our older life. You see a lot of trainers in their 20s, a lot of ego, a lot of external validation needed, all this kind of stuff. And that was me. I was up in Dublin. I wanted to be somebody. I wanted to be seen to be somebody. I wanted to hang around with the cool people, all this kind of stuff. And here I was getting a bus home at 24, crying my eyes out because I didn't have any money. I had failed. I was a loser. all these stories, negative stories. So that's going back 5-6 years. Got work at a pizzeria here in Galway. Moved back in with my parents, and I was actually going to go back and study physiotherapy. That was the intention. So my dad had kind of said to me, look, if you save some money, we'll help support you if you want to go back to college. Physio is a guaranteed job. He said there's no industry for fitness in Ireland. You'll never make money as a trainer in Ireland, which I understand. You know, he was looking out for me. He wanted the best for me, and there was no industry really at the time. You could make maybe a living, but you couldn't make a life kind of thing. So I applied to do physio, got accepted to go back and do physio. It was the light at the end of the tunnel through my dark days, and then that fell through. So I said, screw it, I'm going to try this one more time. Started my little class locally, and that grew very quickly from 5 clients to 100 clients to a couple of hundred clients. And then the last 5 years, as you say, you know, tens of thousands of people going through courses and reading books and all this kind of stuff. But what I always tell people is everything I do is based around belief and belonging. In this sense, I feel we lack belief in ourselves a lot of the time. So I give people a permission slip. I kind of say, here's your permission to go and do everything you ever would love to do. Because I have people to give me a permission slip too. Like when I'm nervous before talks, I have the people to say, Pat, you're brilliant. You're going to be fine. And that's all I need sometimes. And that's what I needed when I was in the horrors a couple of years ago when I failed with everything, was someone to tell me, Pat, you're going to be okay. So I give people that belief, and I give them a sense of belonging. I bring together communities, and whether it's my books or my seminars or anything else, that's kind of what I'm looking at doing. So that's, I don't know, is that a fast or a slow? Runs through
absolutely perfect. It's so funny, and we were speaking about this off air, and I'm going to tell it just for the people that haven't heard the podcast episodes where I've spoken about this. When I first came across you, and we literally just had this discussion before we pressed record, was when I was working as full-time as a primary school teacher in London. I was working through marking my books, and I was working beside my teacher who's from Roscommon. There was 63 teachers in the school, 3 guys, me and a guy from Roscommon and a guy from New Zealand. And he was like, have you heard of this guy, Pat Divilly? And I was like, no. I was like, who's Pat Divilly? He's like, he's a trainer from Galway. And he pulled up your Facebook page, and I remember it had like 60 or 70,000 people. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, and it's funny because you talk about giving permission. I had told myself, and I've been working part-time as a personal trainer, full-time as a teacher at this moment in time. And I remember thinking and telling myself the limiting belief that you cannot make fitness work in Ireland, and don't mind Galway. And here was a guy in Galway that I hadn't heard of up to that point that was literally, in that moment, I'll never forget it, because I had that glass ceiling literally was broken through that moment in time. And it's so funny because I've mentioned you, and I said this off air, that I've mentioned you as somebody that I referenced, that you gave me that permission by you doing your thing, gave me the permission to come back and do my thing. And it's something that I'm forever grateful for. And it's funny because that's now that your living is built off giving people the belief. And you did that for me, 4 or 5 years ago. There'd be no podcast. There'd be no Brian Keane Fitness. I would probably be still grinding as a trainer in London. I wouldn't be doing my thing now because I didn't think it was possible. And it's funny because how you do anything is how you do everything. And when that belief got shattered, that you could become a great trainer in Galway and make a living and make a life, all the other beliefs started to be like, well, I need to start questioning these ones too.
Yes.
And all the limited self-beliefs are self-created. So that's just my personal thank you for that. So
it's that 4-minute mile thing. Everyone's heard the story about the 4-minute mile where, for years they thought it was impossible to run a mile in faster than 4 minutes because your body would supposedly explode, your organs would explode. That was the belief, and it sounds crazy now, but the belief used to be the earth is flat. Yeah. The belief, a lot of people now believe the earth is flat again. So there's all these beliefs, and we feed into our beliefs fully. So my belief in school was I'm not academic, I'm not smart, I'm not clever, which ultimately led to me not taking action on my studies. Like I was all those things. But whatever our story is tends to make us take certain actions. But ultimately someone came and ran, Roger Bannister ran the 4-minute mile, and within a year, something like 50 people had done the same. Now you've got, I think last week, a 15-year-old ran a 4-minute mile. So yeah, I mean, we can spend our lives on social media looking at the doom and gloom and the horror and the terrorism and everything that's up there, which is horrible. Or you can go and find people that shatter every belief you have about yourself and about the world, because they're there. I'm sure there's a lot of people looking at you and seeing the stuff that you've done. We were speaking about it before we came on the podcast. You've got the GAA strength and conditioning program. Like 10 years ago, you told someone you were going to do a GAA strength and conditioning program remotely online. They would have, they wouldn't have entertained the idea. But everything's possible. We live in a world where there's just, we've talked about it. There's abundance, so. Yeah.
I love it. And that's why it's so important and that's why anyone that's not following Pat, I'm going to link up all the social media platforms as well. Follow him because his mindset stuff is tremendous. Even I get so much value from it, and it validates some of the ideas that I have, and it gives me new permission on things that I need. And it's so important to flood your mind with that positive people and following those people, because your thoughts become things, and think that thoughts that you have will create the actions you take, and the actions you take will dictate the direction of your life. So Pat, on that note, generally someone that has achieved as much as you've achieved in terms of your best-selling books, your online programs, you're traveling the world, you're nearly the walking definition of freedom in my eyes. What does your first 60 minutes of the day look like? Do you have a morning routine? Do you have something that sets you up for the entire day that allows you to think the way you think or live the way you live? Or do you have something that's set, or is it different every day? What does your first 60 minutes of your day look like?
Yeah, I've gone through different kind of different thought processes with all of this. I mean, coming up, I read every book that was going. I went through every course. I just wanted to learn everything that was there for me, which I love and I think is brilliant. We need to learn from other people. And then there comes times where you need to kind of step back and you need to say, how does this fit for me? One of the ways that I'll study now is, rather than trying to read a book in a day or really trying to cram as much in as I can, I'll read a certain amount and then I'll reflect. I'll say, okay, what does this actually mean to me? Because that's where the real learning is. Yeah. I can read a book with 100 good ideas, but what good is that if I don't apply anything? Whereas if I read the first page and I'm like, wait a minute, what would happen to my business if I implemented this? So with that in mind, I look at people's morning routines and I say, how does this fit for me? I'm not going to turn my life upside down to try to follow the perfect morning routine. I just need to find what's perfect for me. So anyone listening, I would say, figure out what it is for you. The way I set myself up is I've got 4 areas. I've got my business, I've got my relationships, I've got my health, and I've got kind of my personal or spirituality, whatever you want to call it. So it's 4 areas, and I kind of say, look, I've got a non-negotiable in each of those areas. So with my health, the non-negotiable is a couple of supplements I take and 2 liters of water. And that happens in the day, every day. Regardless of whatever else happens, that happens. And then relationships, I send an acknowledgement text to a couple of people that matter to me, or a video message or a voice message. That happens in the morning. With my spirituality, I do some journaling, so 20 minutes of journaling, just writing my thoughts on paper or struggles or anything like that. And then with my business, I create content every day in some way. So there are 4 non-negotiables, and not so much a morning routine, but the earlier I can get them done in the day, the better. And my sort of thinking is, it could be the worst day in the world. I don't drink anymore, but I could be hungover. But if those 4 things happen, it's still a win. I could be sick, but if those 4 things happen, it's still a win. Because one of the things that happens is we set the barrier so high, we're always looking to the future. I need to achieve this and this and this. It's always forward. So my thinking is, you can never win if that's the game. It's like money. If your whole identity is based around money, and when I make this much money, I'll feel successful. You'll make that much, and then you'll feel like the poorest guy in your new social circle, and you'll be chasing something else. So it becomes, how can you set yourself up in a way that you build momentum? I see this with my own fat loss clients. I'm sure you see the same. Is that obviously ideal world, someone's going to come in and follow the plan to a T. But if that's a massive change from what they're currently doing, it can lead to them beating themselves up. Yeah. And this is for me. If I say my morning routine is going to be 2 hours of reading and this and this and this and this, it's not going to happen consistently. So I'm going to annoy myself. Whereas if I have those 4 non-negotiables, which are pretty straightforward and handy, so get up in the morning, drink 2 liters of water, take my supplements, text some people that I care about, do some journaling, and create some content. It's 2 hours into the day, and I've already won, and everything else is a bonus. And we obviously build upon momentum. So I built some momentum there. So rather than set the bar so high that, okay, I didn't reach the bar, so screw it, I'm going to throw it out the window and start next Monday. I set the bar fairly low. I achieved it fairly early in the day. It's like that whole thing. If you go for a 10-minute workout, it's never going to be 10 minutes. It's going to be more.
Yeah.
That's my kind of approach.
I love it. That's it. Momentum creates momentum. It's, as you said, when you set yourself up to win by setting the bar slightly lower, or what's subjectively lower from looking towards the future, you're setting yourself up, and then your 10-minute workout becomes your 30-minute workout, or whatever that looks like for you in the first 30, 60 minutes of your day. I love that.
I share this with you real quick. It's I got this from Paul, speaking to Paul a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it was really clever. He talks about we all have these goals in the future, and between now and the future, there's uncertainty there because we don't know what's going to happen. We can't know what's going to happen. And when there's uncertainty, oftentimes there's fear, or there's overwhelm, or there's stress, or there's anxiety. So if I set a big goal for the next 12 weeks, and I'm just looking at the future, where I am now versus where I want to be. There's fear, there's overwhelm, there's stress, there's self-doubt, there's the limiting stories that I've tried to do this a million times before, it's never happened. Yeah. But if you look back, you've got certainty because it's already happened. So if you can step back, take the certainty from then and bring it into the future, you can build yourself up to win. So what that looks like is you basically it's 4 questions. You would say, what was a mini win for me yesterday? So I might say, well, yesterday I did a 20-minute workout. Okay, why is that relevant? Well, last week I didn't do any workouts, so 20 minutes is a big win. Okay, how do I build upon that? I continue to do 20-minute workouts, and then what's my next action step? So you just ask those 4 questions. Like, if you're having serious relationship issues, it could be, what was my mini win yesterday? We went for coffee and we didn't eat the heads of each other. Why was it relevant? Because last time we went for coffee, it was World War III. How do I build upon this? You know, like I had a lady in a seminar a couple of weeks ago. She says, there's no mini wins in my family life. And I said, it could be as simple as your kids don't listen to you, but you continue to invest in them and take time for them. That's a win. It's just perspective. Why is that relevant? Because it shows your kids you care about them. How do you build upon it? You continue to invest even when they don't show immediate appreciation. What's your next action step? Send them a text. So it's build that momentum again.
Yeah.
So
I love it. That's, again, as I said, how you do anything is how you do everything. I can see how that would literally work in every area of your life. I love that. I must try and link that up actually directly step by step on that because I love it. So Pat, I didn't know exactly which way to go with this question because you're an expert in fitness, nutrition, and you're an expert in the mindset field. And both of those areas are, when I think of those 2 areas, I think of your name. So I'm going to let you answer this question whatever way you want. What are the 3 biggest nutrition, training, or mindset myths that you kind of see in your area? And you can take it from whatever angle you want, whether you want to focus on mindset, whether you want to focus on nutrition or fitness, whatever you think you can provide the most value with that answer, because you're an expert and authority in that entire space.
Thank you. I suppose one thing worth noting, we talked about it briefly at the start, was the kind of identity piece. So this is the idea that, like, conventional wisdom is, I will take the action, I'll get a result. So I'll do the plan, I'll get the result. I'll do the plan, I'll get the result. But we all know that oftentimes doesn't happen. Otherwise, we'd all be in great shape, we'd all be rich, everything would be perfect. So what I often see people every January, they join the gym. They're going to follow the plan, they don't follow the plan, they fall off the wagon. Next January, they do the same thing. So it's a vicious circle of, I'm just going to change my actions. What people forget is that oftentimes when we go after a goal, it's something we've tried before but we failed with. So you think, okay, I failed with my gym routine before. How did I feel about myself when I failed? I felt guilty, I felt ashamed, I beat myself up, I was pissed off at myself, I was agitated, I was frustrated, I was annoyed because I spent money on it. And then you think you're going after the same goal again, but you're carrying all this negative emotion from before. So again, like, I'm not exactly making it easy for myself. It's a bit like if you've got 12 weeks to go to a wedding, you say, I want to lose a stone, so I'm going to go on this extreme plan. And you fuck it up for the week. So I have to swear I'm on your podcast.
You're on my podcast. You have to at least drop the F-bomb at least once on my podcast.
but picture a 12-week plan. I got to lose a stone for a wedding. I messed it up the first week, so now I've got 11 weeks to lose the stone. So what do? I make it more extreme than it was the week before. Well, I failed when it was extreme. Now I'm going to make it more extreme. So I think what people need to note is that, okay, actions do define results, but your actions are a result of your feelings, and your feelings are a result of your stories. So if people can get to the root of their stories, then they can change everything. Like, take that example I gave at the start. My story was, I'm not academic, I'm not clever, I'm not smart. My feelings based off of that were that I'm inadequate, that I'm wasting my time doing this, that I'm a loser, that I'm not cut out for this kind of thing. Therefore, my actions were, be a messer and don't do the work. And my results were less than optimal results. In the fitness space, that might look like someone's underlying story is I've got bad genetics, which gives them feelings of frustration, which means I'm not going to take action on Brian's plan because it's not going to give me the result I want anyway, which leads to the result of just getting what you got before. Yeah. So I don't know if you're familiar with Byron Katy's work. Really worth checking out. So Byron Katy has, her website is thework.com, and Byron Katy's philosophy or her whole perspective is that all suffering is caused by our thoughts. Like, everything in your head is so much worse than reality is. If you think about a time where you think a friend is pissed off with you, And you're like, oh, they're ignoring my calls, and you're building up all these stories in your head, and then they ring you and say, oh, sorry, man, my phone was broke.
Yeah.
But we did the same thing ourselves. We have these stories. Like one of my stories with family was, I would see other people's families and there would be hugs and I'm so proud of you and I love you and all this. And I was like, wait a second. I've never been told, like, my dad doesn't say I love you. So my story was, my dad doesn't love me. So that was my story. So story is, my dad doesn't love me. No, we're close and everything. Feelings were, I'm annoyed, I'm angry, I'm frustrated. Actions were, don't bother contacting him that often. Results were, not a great relationship. The reality was, he helps me in a million different ways. Okay, so my story had me attached to the idea, love looks like this. Love looks like hugs and I love you. Because I was attached to that story, I was closed off to the idea that he was helping me in a million different ways. But if you're fed into your story, so same thing, if your story is you've got bad genetics so you can't lose weight, then you're completely immune to all the positive actual realities of what's going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's landing with me more than you know. It's a very, very powerful way to look at things.
So what Byron Katy will say is, okay, the story, for example, will be, take for example, if we went for lunch together and you turned up late, I could build a story in my head, because we all jump to conclusions straight away. Brian doesn't respect my time. That becomes the story. So the feelings are, I'm pissed off. The action is, when he turns up, be a dick. And then the result is, we don't get on. Now, Byron Katy has 4 questions. Is the story true? So you're probably going to say, yeah, it's true, because you're annoyed. And then you say, can you absolutely know the story is true? Well, no, because maybe you got stuck in traffic, maybe this happened, maybe this. Who are you when you believe the story? That's the third question. Who are you when you believe the story? So when I believe the story, I'm stressed, I'm annoyed, I'm likely to turn to junk food because I'm stressed. And then the last question is, who could you be without the story? So who could I be without the story that Brian doesn't respect my time? Yeah. I'd have less anger, I'd have more inner peace, I'd have a better relationship with Brian, Yeah. That would be, you asked me for three.
That covers it. I think that one's so powerful. I actually wouldn't want to water that down with anything else. I think that lands with me, so I know that people listening to that's gonna hit hard, because we are our stories, and whether you choose to see the world in a certain way or look at it in another way, and our belief systems and our stories largely dictate the way we see the world, and you can hack that by asking those questions.
And here's where it gets, I think, really interesting is this idea of triggers. Triggers is something that gives you an emotional response. So you'll often get it on your social media, people that jump and start giving you like grief on social media. They're triggered by something you've said. Yeah. I've had it in seminars where a couple will say, the wife comes to my seminar and then she goes home and the husband decides Pat Divilly's a dickhead because I've been telling her to do these things for years and she listens to him and she doesn't listen to me. Now he thinks I'm the issue, but the reality is I'm the trigger.
Yeah. So
he's saying, my wife went to the seminar, she come home, she's treating me differently, she's doing this, that and the other. It's Pat's fault. If he was to say, okay, that's the trigger, what's the story? The story is probably, my wife doesn't listen to me, or there's a lack of communication. There's something underlying. So if we can start to identify the triggers, like if someone gets annoyed by something you're saying on social media, the trigger is going to be Brian Keane.
Yeah.
What's the story though? The story is probably Brian thinks he's better than me, or people think they're better than me, or I don't know, there's always stories there,
Yeah, 100%.
Same for ourselves, because, I know what it was like when I started my Facebook page back 5-6 years ago. You start and everyone's like, oh, good for you, and you get all this positive feedback and it's great. And then there comes a turning point where there's going to be some negative. And I didn't know how to deal with that. I had a hard time dealing with the negativity at the start, because my thinking was, I'm just trying to give it a go, and, I'm working hard, I'm not doing anything to anyone. But now I see in retrospect that, it was triggering those people. It was making them look at themselves. Yeah. And people like to look at themselves sometimes. So I think the lesson we can take from that is, if people give you abuse, it's more than likely something about them that they're afraid to look at. Yeah. Equally, if we give abuse, if we're toxic and if we're annoying, it's something in ourselves that we don't want to accept.
Yeah. But 100%. That's so, it's funny because I love the quote, success leaves clues. And I've spoken about that on other episodes, that myself, and I've been a victim of this, when I look at somebody else, I'm like, oh, I hate that guy, or he's a dickhead, or whatever it is. I'm like, that's a projection of me. They're doing something that is making me feel inadequate about myself, but that's all on me, and I'm projecting my hate onto them. They haven't done anything. They're just doing them. But sometimes it's about pulling it back and putting the mirror to your own face and being like, do you know what, why did I feel that way? And catching those emotions and then recognizing them for what they are. And then there's real gold in that. So it's brilliant to hear you phrase it like that, because people that have listened to the podcast for a while would have heard me say it in a different way. And I love how you broke it down in those terms. So thank you for that.
Byron's got, again, Byron Katy, her book is called Loving What Is, and her idea is that a lot of us, we fight reality. So, something that's happening, it's like, if you live in Galway, it rains all the time. But a lot of people will try to fight that, and they stress themselves out. They're like, oh, I hate the weather here. It's like, it's always going to rain here. So, like, just love it for what it is. There's no point. Go somewhere else. There's no point. But a lot of people are like that in life. There's certain things that just are in life, but they want to fight them for all their life. But she has a great way of doing it. So you've got this story. So maybe the story, going back to when I use as an example, if someone turns up late to lunch, my story would be, Paul doesn't respect my time. Yeah. There's 3 turnarounds you can do on that. So this is where it gets interesting is, okay, Paul doesn't respect my time. I'm going to turn that on myself and say, I don't respect my own time. And then you're going to write out examples where that's true. So I might say, well, I spend 6 hours a day on social media. 3 examples. And then you're like, wait a second. Yeah. That mirror just showed up to teach me a lesson. Then you would say, I don't respect Paul's time. Where is that true? So Paul turns up late for lunch and I'm not present with him. I'm disengaged because I'm annoyed. So I'm not respecting his time. And then the opposite would be, you could say, Paul does respect my time. And 3 examples for that's true. So the idea is, like, if I hold up a book, you just see this side of the book. Now there is this side and this side and this side and this side and this side. There's a lot of different sides, but we're so attached to what, like, we believe to be true. So if I'm attached to the idea I've got bad genetics, I'm not open to the idea that I'm actually I've got really strong legs. I've got, the weight falls off me when I cut back on my carbs. There's a lot of, so by challenging our stories about ourselves and about the world, everything can change. So yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, it's one of my favorite answers that I think I've ever got on that one. So I'm going to run into some rapid fire ones, Pat. So you can go on these how you want. You can one word answer them. You can expand. You can do whatever you want on them. So this is my favorite part of the show. So just kind of get a bit more rapid fire on it. Ready for it?
Yeah.
When you think of the word successful, who's the first person that comes to mind and why?
Conor McGregor, and not for the reason people think. It would be, I see a lot of guys that, to me, is the opposite of success, is the guys that are like wanting to be him, because they're missing the point. The point with, like, why Conor McGregor is why we admire him and have him on a pedestal is because he's the picture of self-belief, work ethic, and working for something he loves. So that guy trained for like 15, 20 years when nobody knew what MMA was. He's doing what he loved 15 years ago. He's not doing something that's cool now. It's like the fitness industry. Everyone's a trainer now because it's the cool thing. I don't know if you know James Hanley. James did up a video. He has Revolution Fitness in Dublin. No. James did a video. He said, if you look at the fitness industry, it's a lot of the guys that were the cool kids in school that were always at the last one to leave the house party, the big drinkers that were drinking 6 nights a week and everything was taken to the extreme. He said a lot of those guys are now fitness trainers because it's the cool thing to do now, because it's supposedly what success is. To me, success is doing what you actually love and doing it, consistently again and again and again and again, and then getting whatever the result. My sister's a success. She's a primary school teacher. Always wanted to be a primary school teacher. She's as much as success. Success is just doing what you want to do and going after it. So for me, Conor McGregor, because he spent so many years in the shadows working on something he loved, and now he's manifested all these things he always wanted. Do I want to be Conor McGregor? No, because it's not my dream. Yeah. But it's his dream, and he chased his dream. So that would be my answer, I think.
Brilliant, love it. What purchase of €100 or less has most positively affected your life in the last 6 months?
Good question. It's going to be a book, probably. You know what? Jiu-jitsu classes. I'll try to keep these rapid fire, but jiu-jitsu, again, I did it when I was 18. I loved it. It was something that was it was an escape for me. It was kind of like a meditation. When you're fighting, you're not thinking about the future or the past, you're in the moment. Yeah. I let it slip when I was growing my business. Like a lot of other things, we throw ourselves into business. So for me, going back to jiu-jitsu has been me taking time for myself. I pay a tenner for an hour. It's the best tenner I spend because it allows me to open up creativity and it makes me a better partner, better son, better everything by taking time for myself.
I love it. Is there a quote you live by or think of often?
Earl Nightingale has a quote called "Courage is the opposite of conformity." Courage is the opposite of conformity. So, courage is being willing to do what the masses are not doing. It's easy to. I was talking to my mum about this earlier today. It's such a random conversation, but talking about weddings, and I was saying, to me, wedding is just crazy the way it is now, because you got people that invite a couple of hundred people who I got about 4 or 5 people I'd like to have at my wedding.
Yeah.
But that's you've only got a small certain people that really care about you. But conformity is, right, I'm doing a wedding, so I better invite every relative I have, even though I haven't seen them in years. I better invite a couple of hundred people, because supposedly a wedding costs 30 grand now. So people have, they got to invite 300 people to break even. So to me, courage is go and travel the world with your 30 grand for a year and see if you still love the person.
I love it. What book, besides your own books that I'll link up in the descriptions, do you think everybody on the planet could benefit from reading?
Yeah, so that quote comes from Earl Nightingale's book, The Strangest Secret. That was the book that founded the personal development industry. The Strangest Secret. It's up on YouTube. It's about 25 minutes long. I used to run some coaching groups, and we'd have the guys every day for 56 days listen to that for 20 minutes. It's very simple. You think of books like The Secret, it all stemmed from Earl Nightingale. So courage is the opposite of conformity, and he talks about adding more value to make more money. He talks about success is, his whole thing is success is the worthy realization of an ideal goal, or something like that. It's like success is just going in the direction where you want to go. One of the analogies I always use, success is not getting to the top of Everest. Success is enjoying the journey up there, meeting people, smiling, taking in the sights, embracing the struggle. Yeah. You're only going to be at the top for a little bit. It's the same with people looking in, think that me writing books and stuff was a success. Nah, the day-to-day stuff is more success to me than the actual moment,
Yeah, I love the quote that you can't be happy at the destination if you don't enjoy the journey. And I get it, and I've spoken on the podcast when I was in the fitness modeling industry and climbing that ladder, and there's nothing worse than being halfway up the ladder against the wrong wall and realizing it's against the wrong wall. But you're better off being at the bottom of the ladder against the right wall to what looks like success for you than being nearly at the top of the ladder against the wrong wall.
I think one of the most courageous things I often see people do is they start climbing the ladder and they're willing to accept that they climbed the wrong thing, and they get back down, they go through a new one, because most people, it's they're halfway through a college, even a year into a college course. I mean, people, they're a year into college, they hate it. They're like, I'll just keep going, it's only another 3 years. I'm like, buddy, you hate what you're doing. You're going to go and do that for 3 years, and you're under the illusion that things are going to change. No, after those 3 years, you're going to step into a job that you hate, and you're going to have the golden handcuffs, and you're going to let money ruin your life, or ruin your life. So it takes a lot of courage. Same way you did with the fitness industry. Easy thing for you to do would have been to keep doing the fitness modeling because you were good at it and you had a big reputation for it, and I'm sure it made money, and all these things. It's difficult to, I'm sure I know you're an Elliot Hulse fan. I remember you going to see him.
Yeah.
I can relate to Elliot in some ways, in that it would have been easier for me just to say just doing fitness, because Ireland, everyone tells me Ireland's not ready for the mindset stuff.
Yeah.
You can make more money. I closed my gym when it was at its peak.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy it anymore. So courage is don't do it for the money. Do it. Turn out. I'm going off on tangent here, but one of the biggest things I've learned and continue to learn in terms of courage is your heart will always give you the right answer, but your head will get in the way and give you a million reasons why you shouldn't do it. So the person that's listening to this that hates their job, your heart knows that you hate the job, but your head is justifying it to yourself. Your head is justifying the fact that you spend a third of your life doing something that makes you miserable, and that affects your relationships, that affects your health, that affects your confidence levels, that affects your happiness. But your head's justifying it, and that'll annoy some people that I'm saying that. They're like, it's fine for you. It doesn't make any odds to me. I'm saying it from a place of you can change your life. It's not as hard as you think it is, and you just got to make decisions.
Completely agree. And if you're somebody that's listening to this and that has annoyed you or that's pissed you off, the one thing I'll offer to you is maybe take a look at yourself on that, because I know myself when people have said things that I'm like, oh no, I don't agree with that, and you jump straight into defense, that's normally where the real gold is. The gold is in that has triggered me for a reason, that I need to maybe look at myself on this. And that a job is one, because people will say, oh, well, it's easy for you, you got on Facebook early, or it's easy for you, or for me, people will be like, well, you were a fitness model, and then it's easy to do a business from that. And you can make all the excuses, but that's not going to change anything for you until you pull it back on yourself and realize, take ownership for what you're doing. And then that's where all the goal is, because as you said, it comes down to the stories you tell yourself.
Something I realised, this is like both of us, because anyone that's got big social media presence will get the criticism at times. I use this example that if someone popped on my social media feed and said, Pat, you're a blue monster, it in one ear and out the other, and I'd say, this person cracked, or anything like that. If they go on and they say, Pat, you're lazy, or you're a glutton, or if they say something and it gets me and it agitates me, the reality is there's probably some truth to it.
Yeah.
That's why it's getting to me, because if they say something that doesn't bother me, like people say, oh, you're not genuine, that's not going to bother me, because it doesn't, I know it not to be true. Yeah. But there are things that people say that a couple of years ago I would have said, oh, hater. Anytime anyone said something I didn't like, oh, they're a hater. The reality of the situation was plenty of people that said stuff that was true. It was true when I look back. Like, I was trying to be somebody. People would say, "Oh, you're just trying to be famous." I probably fucking was trying to be. Yeah. 5 years ago, because I felt like an absolute failure, and I was a young guy that wanted to be somebody. I've learned to let go of that now. So like you say, for the people listening, if anything that's said, just consider it. You don't have to. You can dismiss it if you want, but I would just be open to the idea that the things that our greatest enemies sometimes can be our greatest teachers, because they're holding a mirror up to us, the things we don't want to accept in ourselves. One of the reasons, and I've learned this from personal experience, one of the reasons we distract ourselves with social media, or people turn to porn and they're addicted to porn, or addicted to distraction, they're addicted to alcohol, addicted to sugar, is because they haven't accepted certain parts of themselves. Mm-hmm. So, when you're a kid, do you mind me going off on tangents here?
Please do. I love your tangents.
When we're kids, we're kind of led to believe, okay, there's certain ways you act, there's certain ways you think, there's certain things you believe, they're positive, they're good. And then there's the other side, which are bad. So you're told, it's bad to be angry, bad to be, all these negative emotions, supposedly. So then you get a bit older, and you've boxed off all these emotions that they're bad. So you bury them down deep inside of yourself. And what happens is you either see them in other people, which is what we're talking about. You don't see it in yourself, you just project it onto other people. So the person on social media annoys me because they're cocky, and it's not good to be cocky. Or if a bit of cockiness comes up with you, you'll suppress it. And that's why, again, we turn to alcohol. Okay, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling frustrated because I hate my job, but these are negative emotions, so I better mask it. So I'll drink alcohol, I'll eat junk food. This is one of the other big things in fitness, why people struggle to lose weight, is because they haven't accepted parts of themselves. Granted, being cocky is not the best thing in the world in some situations, but it will help you in others. If you're not somewhat cocky when you go into a job interview, you're probably going to struggle to get the job. So every emotion serves a purpose. Like anger, people think anger is a bad emotion, so they suppress it and they project it onto other people. If you accept that you can be angry sometimes and it can be positive, you don't turn to distraction. You don't try to self-sabotage, if you want to call it that. I don't know how I got into that, but I hope that makes sense.
100%. It's funny because anyone who's been listening to the podcast for a while, it's something that I've had to deal with myself. And the birth of Holly's just gone too. A lot of my shit came up from times in my life and my dealings with addiction and an addictive personality. And a lot of it is trying to numb the shit that's going on and the shit that's happened to you and all the dysmorphia and all the things that come up with it. So that's to hear you saying it that way too is brilliant. Sometimes it's just recognizing that if you're turning to alcohol or turning to drugs or turning to sex or turning to something, there may be something else there that's worth just keeping an eye on. That maybe there's a reason you're trying to get distracted for something deeper.
Even work or social media. Like work is a common one. You'll see it in like a lot of people will bury themselves in work. And they'll work, and they'll be the ATM machine to their family. They'll throw money at the family and kind of say, that's me taking care of things. It's not enough. But people will convince themselves that it is. It needs to be more than that. So work can be a distraction. Excessive exercise. You see these ultra endurance athletes that train like 40 hours a week. Maybe that's not, I'm not telling people what they should or shouldn't do, but my thing is Like when I just packed in alcohol 7 months ago, full stop, and people say, "Oh, you're fine. You should just have a few." No, it doesn't work for me. I just go mad when reality. And ironically, I'm prone to a bit of anxiety, and the anxiety is probably worse now that I don't drink because I'm not masking it. When the feelings come up, I have to deal with them myself. But there's great learnings in that, rather than just turn into something that's going to sedate me. So I would just encourage people, if you're an emotional eater and you turn to food, first recognize, okay, what's coming up? Why do I feel this way? What could it be? It's like it's like taking antidepressants. It's like taking drugs, painkillers, and not sorting the issue. You're just masking the issue.
Yeah. So
you hate your job, which is resulting in you turning to alcohol 3-4 nights a week. Alcohol is never going to be the answer.
No.
And now it's not easy to, you don't have to quit the booze, but it's not easy to accept that maybe the job is the issue.
Yeah.
It's easier to do the alcohol thing or do the whatever it is. But real empowerment comes from let go of all that shit that's distracting you from the way I see things now is you can either have things that move you toward what you want or they distract you from what you want. Same thing with money. You can spend money on, like, this is one of my commitments to myself, and I have to remind myself of this all the time because I definitely don't stick to it all the time. But if I look at my bank accounts, where I'm spending my money, is that moving me toward my goal or is it moving me away from it?
Yeah.
Like me going to a nightclub and spending whatever, that's obviously not moving me toward my goal. So it's distracting me from my goal. That's not to say you shouldn't relax, because you can relax and you can do all that stuff and you can help your goal, but you're either moving forward or backward, I think.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at things. And again, success leaves clues. So anyone that lands with, definitely just take a look at yourself. And I know I'll be doing it myself after this. There's a couple of things there that came up for me. So Pat, I know how valuable your time is, so I just want to say a massive thank you for coming on. And I know you've got a couple of seminars and things coming up. I'd love if you could just tell people about those, particularly people in the Galway area, and anything else you have coming up. Can you tell us about that, and where's the best place to reach you for everything that you're doing?
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, I have an event July 22nd in Galway. It's called Insights, and it's just a one-day event. The purpose of my event is just to give people a bit of headspace, away from distraction, away from the noise, into an environment where you can kind of just free out the mental clutter. One of the things I think that happens is we've so much going on in our heads all the time. It's very hard to be conscious and decide where I'm trying to go. Like we feel like we're keeping our heads above the water all the time. Like I'm trying to look after this and this and this and putting out fires. If you can take a full day for yourself, even like 10 until 6 in Galway, so that's July 22nd. It's patdivilly.com/July event. And the idea is just help people get a bit clearer on what's working in your life, what's not working, what small changes can you make, how can you move forward. So that's the main thing. Just link up with me on social media, Instagram or Facebook. Like I said to you, I'm not as active on social media as I used to be. I do need to get the finger out, but it's a fine line, I think, with social media. It's like I wish sometimes I tracked more of what I do with my travels and stuff, but equally I enjoy not having to take the phone out at every moment. So it's finding the balance, probably. You know what it's like for us. We are the brand and we are the business, so it needs to be done. But social media, Instagram or Facebook, whatever else.
Brilliant, Pat. I will link all of those up in the show notes, and I'll link the page for the event in Galway as well. Guys, definitely check that out. I checked out, I think it was your first ever event you did 2-3 years ago. I was at it. It was amazing. I got so much from it. So guys, Pat's absolutely amazing. All his live stuff's incredible. And I'll link everything up in the description. Pat, thank you so much again, and we'll catch up with you everyone soon.